The following podcast by Fusion Family Wealth, LLC, Fusion, is intended for general information purposes only. No portion of the podcast serves as the receipt of or as a substitute for personalized investment advice from Fusion or any other investment professional of your choosing. Please see additional important disclosure at the end of this podcast. A copy of Fusion's current written disclosure brochure discussing our advisory services and fees is available upon request or at www.fusionfamilywealth.com.
Welcome to the Crazy Wealthy Podcast with your host, Jonathan Blau. Whether you're just starting out or are an experienced investor, join Jonathan as he seeks to illuminate and demystify the complexities of making consistently rational financial decisions under conditions of uncertainty. He'll chat with professionals from the advice world, entrepreneurs, executives, and more to share fresh perspectives on making sound decisions that maximize your wealth. And now, here's your host.
Good morning. Welcome to another episode of the Crazy Wealthy Podcast. I'm happy to introduce to the podcast today my friend Assemblyman Stern, New York State Assemblyman, elder care planning specialist, estate planning, all around good family man, and a whole host of other things. But I don't want to take up too much time with the intro. I'm going to let Stephen introduce himself, and then we'll kick it off with hopefully an engaging discussion. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning, Jonathan. Thanks so much for having me today. And it's always good to be with you. Your watchers should know that you and I go back a long time, and it's a friendship and a partnership that I'm very proud of. But as far as background, as you know, I started my career just around the same day as you did. Coming out of school and looking forward to the launch of a new profession. I am an attorney with the law firm of David Dow, Siegel and Stern. Our law firm, established in 1913, makes us one of Long Island's oldest, most established law firms, and we're very proud of that. But we're even prouder of the work that we concentrate on, which is elder law, estate planning, and working with special needs families. And so through this experience, working with new families from their very beginnings, all the way up to some of the most well-known and prestigious family business owners with tremendous estate planning issues and everything in between, and representing our older neighbors and our loved ones with disabilities and some of our most vulnerable, really was the starting point for a career that I continue to this day that I'm very proud of and very passionate about. But what led me to what I spend an awful lot of time on today, which is serving my community as the New York State Assemblyman representing the 10th Assembly District on Long Island. I have just started my fourth term in the New York State Assembly, and I'm very proud. Yes, thank you. I'm very proud of my record in working representing our families throughout the 10th Assembly District. Prior to being elected to the State Assembly, I had served for 6 terms or 12 years in the Suffolk County Legislature, and was very proud of my record there, having authored, introduced, and passed several legislative initiatives that were literally first of their kind on Long Island, first of their kind in New York State, and even several examples of being first in the nation. And so it was with that record that I now serve in the New York State Assembly. And as you know, I'm very proud of the fact that I was just recently appointed by the New York State Assembly Speaker, Carl Hastie, to now be the new chairman of the State Assembly Committee on Veterans Affairs. And that's particularly important, not just because of the very good and gratifying work that allows me to do, working with and for the outstanding and brave men and women that have served our great nation, but because on Long Island that's particularly important. Suffolk County is home to the largest number of veterans in all of New York State, which we're very proud of. And Nassau and Suffolk County as a Long Island region make up the number 2 region in the country by veterans population. And so Veterans Affairs for us here locally isn't just an important issue. It's a very, very local issue as well. And so those are experiences and passions, that I take with me. But it all started back when we first started working with our clients and building
Right.
practices and building leadership positions and reputations, and both of which we continue to do this day.
No, and that's great. In fact, one of the catalysts that led me to think about inviting you now. Of course, I was always thinking of inviting you, but at this particular time is my last podcast guest was a retired friend of mine from the military, level 5 special ops Black Hawk helicopter operator, very humble guy, very successful in the military. And the guest before him was my father-in-law, as you know, Amy's dad, who just was honored at the UBS Arena Military Hero of the Game. So I thought at least one aspect of the podcast that we talk about that you just mentioned, the Veterans Affairs Committee, dovetails with those two things. And, Amy's dad being a Long Islander seemed to also catalyze that thought. But I was talking to Amy last night, and she reminded me, I didn't really remember how we met. I know Amy and I and you and Mary went out for dinner for the first time in New York City, I don't know,
Yeah,
almost 30 years ago. But do you remember
that's
how we
right.
met?
My bet is that it was probably through one of the local, Long Island business networking associations. I remember there was a time
So I'll tell
when
you.
we were the young guys in the room.
So I'm going to tell you how we met. When I
Yeah,
joined Sanford Bernstein, when I left Arthur Anderson in 1996, the end of the year, I had to build my practice. So I opened up Martindale Hubble and was calling people with firms that I thought we could work together with, and you were among them. So that's
yeah, very, very
that's
good.
actually how we met. And
Yeah,
do you remember the name of the restaurant we ate dinner at?
there is no way. I don't remember the name of the restaurant I ate in last night.
I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't remember it either, but Amy did. She said it was the
Well,
York Grill, the
oh,
York Grill
fantastic.
on York Avenue.
Fantastic. Our wives will always remember that
I
stuff.
didn't.
Absolutely.
So I wanted to talk to you about a couple of things. I know. As we talked, I'd love to you to share your story. I know you're well versed as a professional in the elder care area, but I think it goes a lot deeper than that in terms of how you came to practice elder care and some of the contributions. So why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. So I had a passion for public service. Always wanted to be involved in some way, and so one of my very earliest experiences was working for the staff of my local congressman down in Washington, D.C. And it was my responsibility to coordinate congressional hearings on issues that were coming under the U.S. House Select Committee on Aging. And so I was coordinating hearings on the delivery of long term care services to indigent seniors across the country, the federal response to the growing problem of elder abuse. And I was there for the repeal of the Medicare Catastrophic Health Care Act. And so it was an exciting time to be involved because there was a lot of different things going on that gave me the opportunity to participate in a very substantive way. And with that, I was able then to have a position in my United States Senator's office. Senator John Breaux was his name in Louisiana. I was a student at Tulane University in New Orleans, and the senator was very active on Medicare reform issues. And so, with that experience, I knew that I had an area of law, of policy that I was interested in. And so I went to law school primarily to participate in that school's elder law clinic, which is one of the very first in the country. And so, having had that experience and a real dedicated commitment to this area of the law, uh, I ultimately was able to have my first invitation for employment with Lawrence Davidow, the managing partner of the Davidow law firm, who continues to not only be my colleague, but my one of my very dearest friends and like family to this day. It is now uh, over 30 years that I've been with the firm. And it's the only area of the law that I've ever practiced. And so, while I'm proud of my role in the office, uh, between me and Lawrence and others in the firm, we've literally held every single leadership position in this area of the law that you could possibly have, at the local level, the state level, the national level. We write extensively on these issues. We are called upon to be frequent lecturers, as you are, and not only is that professionally gratifying, but personally, it's pretty cool to have been, recognized as leaders in this can still growing area of the law after all of this time. It's a position that we're very proud of. It's a service that we provide that we are extremely proud of, and yes, I can tie it all back to that original experience on Capitol Hill that sparked an interest in a young guy who wanted to get involved and make a difference. I've certainly been able to do that in our legal practice, and now doing it on an even larger scale. First at the county level in Suffolk County, and now New York State. And as I said earlier, it's given me the opportunity not just to represent my constituency, not just our region, but many of the legislative initiatives that I've passed over the years have truly gone on to become national models.
So for those of you who are watching the podcast, you'll notice that Steven's now switched backgrounds. It's not because he's got some kind of anxiety disorder where he has to move around. We just had some technical issues, so we moved to a room that hopefully had better Wi-Fi connectivity. So, Stephen, I love the idea of how passionate that you are when you describe your work in elder care, and I'm equally passionate about what I do. And when I started off at Arthur Anderson as an accountant, when we first met, and I was joining the Sanford Bernstein, the money management industry, while I was motivated to try and hopefully provide a good economic background for my family, provide well for my family. That wasn't my lead motivator. I always enjoyed what I did with the clients, and I enjoyed taking these high net worth clients and helping them kind of put the pieces of the puzzle together from the tax and planning standpoint in those days when I was at Arthur Anderson. Particularly as a young kid, I felt like, wow, they're relying on me. I have two master's degrees, but I'm just kind of getting started. And I was able to learn to be creative and all of that. I wanted to throw at you the idea that with all the success you've achieved in the industry, how much, if at all, when you were starting out, was money a motivator for you to pursue the level of partnership you have and so forth? We talk to that a little bit.
Yeah. So I can tell you that the pursuit of money was almost never on my mind. I started in this area of the law because I was passionate about the subject matter. And my partner, Lawrence, he was the older managing partner, would always say that, we do great work. We love what we do. We love how we do it, and we love how we do it, who we do it with. Then financial success will come. And he was absolutely right, and I appreciate him and respect him very much for that. But it was a great philosophy then. It's a great philosophy now. It's one that my wife and I, are consistently discussing with our children, because we both shared that philosophy, and we are both beneficiaries of that. And I think that's a good philosophy for anybody to follow, regardless of profession, regardless of the industry, and it certainly has gotten us through, and we're very very proud of that. But I'm a big believer in that if you are doing what you're doing simply for financial success, um, that for most anyway, not all, but for most, that's not necessarily going to lead to the most gratifying uh, uh, work life. And, we hear it all the time that, nobody ever passing away, you know, laments the fact that they didn't work, hard enough. It's always about how they didn't enjoy life enough. And look, I'll say it this way, so much of my professional practice in our law firm is dealing with death and dying on a daily basis.
Sure.
How does one plan for incapacity? Who makes important financial decisions or medical decisions if you're not able to? How do you leave a lasting legacy to a next generation down or beyond? How do you alleviate or even minimize the estate tax implications of that process? And so whether, someone is creating their very first last will and testament because they're expecting a first child, or, getting ready to pass on a multi-million dollar, business to the next generation down with very, very difficult issues that go along with that. Um, will there be financial success in that kind of a practice? Absolutely. But I'll tell you this, and I can say this firsthand, that um, if that's the primary goal, then that's going to be a challenge. In this area of the law, it literally has to be about the personal satisfaction in the work that you're doing. I don't think it works any other way.
I'm with you. I asked you that question for a specific reason, because for the younger generations that are listening to the podcast, and I know there are some of those, my clients' children and my friends' children and so forth. I find that the society has evolved into one where we have what I call a microwave mentality. A lot of people want things instantaneously, and oftentimes I tell my kids, if first of all, if you're in the pursuit of money, if that's your main motivation and whatever you're choosing to do for a living, oftentimes, as you said, not only won't you achieve happiness, but you might not even achieve the money that you're looking for, because you're not going to be productive when you're unhappy just in
Sure.
the pursuit of money.
Yep.
And it's such an important message, because first of all, there's no rush. It takes time. The best way to accumulate success in terms of business and knowledge and experience, as well as wealth, to me, is to get there slowly and methodically, not to push it. And if you're not enjoying, as you say, what you do, I mean, I love what I do, as you know, I'm very passionate about it, and that's what motivates me. I mean, we all don't have to necessarily work forever, but if you don't want to stop working, to me, that's when you know you're successful, because that's how I feel. I don't want to stop working. I love my clients, and I love the work that we do for them. And frankly, selfishly, I love the feedback I get,
Oh,
from.
sure. By the way,
Yeah.
you must also love the feedback that other allied professionals get, because I know very well that your clients love you,
Oh,
and
thank you.
that's
No,
uh, and
yeah,
that's always the best thing that we can hear.
thank you. No, and I, yeah, that's it. So we're from the same, cut from the same cloth that way. So tell me a little bit about along those lines, how you grew up, where you grew up, and what maybe some of the biggest influences were as you were growing up that shaped you to who you became.
Yeah. So I grew up in the quintessential suburban Long Island, late '60s, early '70s world, which is unfortunately very different than the world we are in today. It was a great time. Anybody that grew up in our area on Long Island during that time knows that it was, in many ways, an idyllic childhood. I mean, not everything was always great, and you didn't always see the bad the way we do today. That's for sure. But there was just something very special about growing up at that time when the bus would drop you off. There were no parents home. You would go out and get on your bike and ride around the block with your friends, and you'd climb trees. And maybe you got a little older and would go roller skating, and but then walk home the 2 miles when it was dark out at night. The best part was playing street hockey in the streets with no holes barred, and it was really a very special time. We don't see that these days. Um, Too many of us don't get the opportunity to appreciate that in the childhoods of our own children these days. We talk about it, We might even have some of the pictures that we show our children through from time to time. But for the most part, the days that we enjoyed are no longer with us. And that's a shame because I think when you say that we are cut from, a very similar cloth, I believe that's 100% true. But I know that there are others that share our generation that feel and do exactly the same as we do, and for very similar reasons.
Yeah, well,
But of course, it also comes down to who our role models are. For me, both of my parents were outstanding parents. My father was an engineer by trade, and we're very proud of the fact that he was part of the engineering design team for what used to be the large projector at the Vanderbilt Planetarium, which generations of children would go through and look up and dream about reaching for the stars on field trips or weekend visits with their families. And our family is very proud to be part of that legacy. My mother was one of the very first business owners on Main Street in Sayville. The Special T was the name of her T-shirt shop. It was one of the very first iron-on T-shirt shops anywhere in the region. There was a period of time where you couldn't go to a birthday party where a good percentage of the presents were in that distinctive brown gift box, which was some kind of shirt from the Special T. And so, she enjoyed a wonderful, very well-respected reputation for being a local business person, a strong woman business personality. She would go to a lot of the middle schools and high schools as a guest speaker, which we were very proud of. And so, for me, not only was it a great way to grow up, but extremely important, invaluable, really, for me as a way to be able to convey my experience to my two boys about the importance of a partnership with a spouse, a partnership with those that you're close with and rely on. And that truly, being part of that kind of a cohesive team is something that I grew up seeing firsthand, and something that I live in my own relationship, and I'm really glad that my boys get to see that.
no, that's wonderful. And I know when we needed to, when we started Fusion Family Wealth in 2011, sorry, 2013, we reached out to Mary Waldner's office environments, and I know she's done a wonderful job building the company as president, and she was as a friend, she helped us out. I know certainly weren't a big client, but she took us into the city and let me sit in all the chairs because that was my rule. Amy's form, I'm function. Amy's like, oh, this is beautiful, gonna have it. No, no, let me sit in it and make sure my clients who are built similar to me will be comfortable in this
Yep.
chair. Some of them, and so
Well,
so
your office is both. Your office is very, very functional, very comfortable, and it's beautiful as well.
thank you. No, we did, and Mary helped a lot with that. By the way, I always, when you told me the story about your mom, I remembered the commercial of during your campaigning that where you highlighted the t-shirt business, and I
That's right.
was kind of poignant when I thought about it.
Yeah.
I would say one of the things I want to talk about briefly is when we talk to people, our generation, w- when I do, they have the same kind of perspective that you shared about the nostalgic reminiscence of the 50s and 60s and 70s. That kind of that was when everyone seemed to have a great middle class job, middle class home, middle class
Yep.
family. And what's interesting is, and I think we were happier then generally as on the whole. And I think the reason is what I kind of try to teach all my clients is that you have to have in life, no matter how much you have to have something that people who materially have more than you could never have. And that I say in one word is enough. Because if we keep moving the goalposts, if our current situation minus our expectations isn't a positive number, we can't really be happy. And I say this in the context now of societal expectations. So believe it or not, in the 50s, the average median income, family income, was about $29,000 or so. and inflation adjusted today, it's heading toward 85,000. So it's almost tripled. But a lot of people don't feel like the quality of their life has tripled or even come close. In fact, for so many people, because as an example, the average size home back then was 900 square feet, and today it's about 2,500, right? So
Yeah,
while the income has tripled, the expectations have at least tripled. And so if we can't control that, I don't know what the answer is, but society won't be finding real happiness, in my view, because you have to put those things in context. And I think it works on a family by family level, but on societal level, and hopefully with the advent of all the social media and the 24/7 news cycles, I just don't know how to conquer that. Everybody's always comparing everybody to someone else. There's a guy who wrote this book, uh, Panics, Manias, and Crashes, some title like that. And in the book, he had a quote that said, "There's nothing as damaging to a person or their judgment as to see a friend get rich." And so it's that Facebook reality, right? We always think everybody's life is just so good, and how come ours isn't? Nobody shares the other stuff on Facebook, so
that's
we have to
true.
figure out, figure out a way around that. I think what I'd love to do is I'd love to maybe we'll have a follow-up podcast. I don't want to go too long on this one, but I think there's so much more we could talk about in terms of how we work together and all of those sorts of things as well. But
Absolutely.
um, but I have to tell everybody who's listening, I can't tell you how much we all appreciate what you do for the community and the way you practice business. I know my clients who work with you are always very happy, and they know the difference between authenticity and just someone who's doing it to build their hours. It comes through. So we appreciate all of that.
Oh,
And
thank you.
you know, if there's anything else you want to add before we.
No, I would love to join you once again. Talk about some more specific issues. But it's always a pleasure being with you, and very best to home as always. Looking forward to seeing you again soon.
Thank you.
And I would just leave your viewers with the idea that certainly in my role as the new chairman of the Veterans Affairs Committee, that is a position that goes on just representing our immediate community in my legislative district. I mention it specifically because, again, you just celebrated your father-in-law with
Yeah.
the Islanders. Um, Chad Ford was an outstanding guest that you had recently. I watched the entire podcast. I thought it was fantastic.
Thank you.
And we all have either veterans somewhere in our lives, or we have people in our lives who are close with veterans. And particularly on Long Island, as I said, as a region, we are number two in the country, and Suffolk County is the home to the largest number of veterans in all of New York State. One of the ideas that I'm hoping gets out as a result of our conversation today is that if you have a veteran in your family, if you have a neighbor who served our great nation, particularly those that are struggling with challenges. The number one priority for me and for us, policy perspective, this year in my capacity as the chairman now, is to minimize, alleviate, do whatever we can possibly do to bring down the troubling, the heartbreaking, and the absolutely unacceptable rate of veteran suicide. It is all around us. We don't see it. Unfortunately, too many of us hear about challenges too late. But if anybody, within the listening universe, knows a veteran who's struggling, knows someone who knows a veteran that's struggling, there are plenty of resources here locally in Suffolk County and beyond. Please, either hit the internet or contact New York State Assemblyman Steve Stern's office. We can get you to the right services for so many of our local heroes who not only desperately need it but certainly deserve it.
No, Steve, I'm going to ask you one last question without going too long into it, because you mentioned all of this great work that you're doing for the community. Um, professionally, and I know how you are with your family, and Mary with her position. Where do you find the time? How do you balance all this?
I mean, I might look this way. I feel like I'm about 95 years old at this
You don't
point.
look it. You don't look it. You're over 75.
Yeah. You know, Jonathan, I would say this, it goes directly back to what you said and the philosophy that we share. I can't make more hours in a day, that's for sure. But if you're passionate about every single thing that you're doing throughout the day, it's hard work. But if it's your passion, you'll come up with the systems. You'll surround yourself with the best people who share your vision, and not only make things work, but actually exceed in the goals that you set. There's always more points to put on the board. There's always another constituent to help. There's always another client and family in crisis who needs guidance. That's what drives me. It's what's always driven me. Like you, we'll be working at it forever
No, that's it. I
because
think
it's what
that's
we love doing.
That's your answer. It's because it's not always work, right? I could spend 18 hours a day doing some of whatever we're doing relating to this, the podcast, to work. But when you're so satisfied at the end of it, it's not like digging holes. It doesn't eat away at you like that. All right. Well, thank you so much, Stephen. It was great to have you on, and I look forward to having a follow up sometime in the next few months.
Look forward to it as well. Thanks so much.
All right, you got it.
Stay tuned to hear Amy's call-in for the recap of today's episode.
Hello.
Hi, honey. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am tired. We're ending this long President's Day weekend, and I know in terms of timing, it couldn't be better having a assemblyman that you spoke to this week.
Well, I guess, yeah. There's never a bad time to speak to Steve Stern, though.
I'm sure that's true. So what did you learn?
So what I learned about Steve is he had a passion as early as he can remember for public service. And one of the things that led him to pursuing elder care as much as he did was his very early experience working for the staff of his local congressman in D.C., and his responsibility there was coordinating hearings on issues that came under the U.S. House Select Committee on Aging. That led to his expanded interest and pursuit of everything relating to enhancing the elder care space.
And in fact, he became a pioneer in shaping the way he described it, shaping the way the law unfolded in elder care. So he's not just practicing it; he really was played a large part in influencing modern day elder care law. So
I'm actually curious why he went into politics. But before we talk about that, I have some fun facts. Do you remember how you met Steve?
I do remember, yeah. When I left Arthur Anderson and started at Sanford Bernstein, I was calling lawyers and accountants to try and network, and he was among them. And then we went out for dinner with Steve and Mary at I forget the name of the restaurant in Manhattan.
York Grill in New York City, that I don't think exists anymore. But what I remember so vividly from that dinner was Steve and Mary were maybe a year older than us, not much, but they were what I considered very successful and ahead of their time in terms of our age group. And we were probably none of us had children at the time. So we were probably all 26 or 27. But I remember they were just buying their first condominium in Holbrook, New York, the land of the IRS. And I remember her saying to us, and I was so amazed of the fact that someone our age could afford to buy a condo on their own. But what I do remember her telling us is they could afford the condo, but they couldn't afford air conditioning. So they had to buy split system units to put into their windows so that they had air conditioning. And I still was amazed by the whole situation. And it's funny to see how far everyone has come in that long period, that short period of time.
Well, that's an interesting segue. So Mary is the president of Walden's Office Furniture, which she perpetuated her family's business. And Stephen has as two of his biggest role models is Mary, his wife, and his mom, who was well known for her store in Sayville called Special T, where it was T-shirts In fact, one of his political commercials years ago, I remembered when he was describing to me that he highlighted that, and he's very proud of the success she achieved as a single business owner in downtown Sable, and how much he learned from her about business and in general.
And it's very unique at that time to be a very strong, successful woman in business back then.
And at the same time, he said that his boys learned similarly from Mary in her role at Waldner. So that was all interesting. But the way he got into politics is he really cares about the elderly. Obviously, he's focused on Long Island as a New York State Assemblyman for Suffolk County, but he cares about the elderly. He cares deeply about veterans. He was just appointed chair of the Veterans Affairs Committee. So all of that, it relates to what we talked about, is that he and I said we were just passionate about what we did. We never were chasing money. And we achieved success because we woke up every day with a passion for what we were doing. He said it never was about the money. And so we talk a lot about that, about his childhood, middle class upbringing. His dad was an engineer, and the Vanderbilt Planetarium, coincidentally, had a need for their big projector, which was in need of repair. And it turned out he was one of the few people who had the skills and got brought in for that, unrelated to him. So we were talking about a lot of those things and how we grew up as kids without the iPhones, and we went out on our bikes and played. So it's really a great call with a good friend, and learned a lot about what led him to be able to juggle his political career with his legal career, and really have the time and passion for both still today.
So were there any biases that you came up with during your call that he had, or that you could relate to what you do?
No, we didn't really get into that. We didn't really talk too much about biases. This was more of a, learning about money from the standpoint of, I think money shouldn't be the motivator, and how you can do a lot of things and have a lot of fulfillment, and then the money can still come, but it shouldn't lead the way. I think it was more of that kind of a message.
Well, you know the saying that if you enjoy what you do, you never work a day in your life. And it sounds good in theory, but the majority of the very successful people in this world, they really do enjoy what they do. And if anyone knows you as well as I know you, or even half as well as I know you, they know that your clients and your business is not only your business, but it's also your hobby and it's your passion. And it comes through all the time. I wish you had as much passion for doing the laundry and keeping the house clean, but I'll save that for another time.
I have as much passion for you.
Oh, there you go. So I'm going to end the call with that, because I don't think you're going to get any better than that today.
All right, honey. Thank you for calling in, and thank everybody for listening to this edition of Crazy Wealthy Podcast.
Happy President's Week, everyone. Have a great day. Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Crazy Wealthy Podcast. For more insights, resources, and to sign up for our newsletter, visit crazywealthypodcast.com. Until then, stay crazy wealthy.
The previous podcast by Fusion Family Wealth, LLC, Fusion, was intended for general information purposes only. No portion of the podcast serves as the receipt of or as a substitute for personalized investment advice from Fusion or any other investment professional of your choosing. Different types of investments involve varying degrees of risk, and it should not be assumed that future performance of any specific investment or investment strategy, or any non-investment related or planning services, discussion, or content will be profitable, be suitable for your portfolio or individual situation. Neither Fusion's investment advisor registration status, nor any amount of prior experience or success should be construed that a certain level of results or satisfaction will be achieved if Fusion is engaged or continues to be engaged to provide investment advisory services. Fusion is neither a law firm nor accounting firm, and no portion of its services should be construed as legal or accounting advice. No portion of the video content should be construed by a client or prospective client as a guarantee that he or she will experience a certain level of results if Fusion is engaged or continues to be engaged to provide investment advisory services. A copy of Fusion's current written disclosure brochure discussing our advisory services and fees is available upon request or at www.fusionfamilywealth.com.